Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the show. It's your host, Danny Hai Fong, and I am joined by two very dear friends of the show. We have Professor Mohammad Marandi from Tehran, and we have Pepe Escobar, both here to talk about the latest developments in the war. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me today.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Well, let's get right to it, gentlemen. There are major updates in this conflict. Iran is getting very strategic, incredibly strategic with its retaliation, hitting a CIA base station, hitting multiple THAAD air defense systems in the UAE, and especially one in the UAE as of the last 24 hours. I think there are only 11 of these in the world. But I wanted to ask you, Professor Marandi, if you could put this retaliation in the context of what also is happening in Iran and how you think this is going at the moment, given that the situation I know is quite dangerous in the country, but also Iran's retaliation has been quite furious, and many have been taking note of it.
Well, ironically, the war has strengthened Iran, despite the bombings and the slaughter and the bombings of schools and hospitals and the bombing of IRIB, the Iranian National Radio and Television. I went there the night before last, I think. I usually don't go on Iranian TV, but because of the war, I said I'll go. And then, I mean, I have nothing against it, but I just don't want to be like a public figure in Iran. I'm already doing enough abroad. But I went the night before last, and when I got to the studio, because I'd been there a couple of years before, it was destroyed. And they said, no, you have to go to another building. So I went to another building, and I did this interview till midnight, and then I left. And 1 hour later, they bombed IRIB again. So there, they bomb Iranian radio and television. You don't hear about this in the Western media. They bomb apartment blocks. They flatten homes, and it's quite stunning. But aside from that, and the criminality of the Epstein regime, we see people very united. And I'm sure you've seen footage of this, and I put this in my Telegram account. Every night we have gatherings across the country in different cities. And in Tehran, they don't have a single gathering. Sorry, they gather in different parts of the city, like in 20 different squares. And each of them are like in the, I don't know, hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands, depending. Huge. And people so there are millions on the streets of Tehran, even though a lot of people have left, because the government shut down schools after they slaughtered the little girls in the elementary school. They closed all schools and universities and asked people to leave if they don't have work to do in Tehran. But the people on the streets, and you can see them in some of the clips that I put on my Telegram channel, people on the streets are chanting, and then you can see anti-aircraft defenses working because they're under missile attacks. And people don't budge. They won't move. They won't run. Men and women, huge crowds in different parts of the city. I never thought I'd see that sort of thing in my life. And so the mood in Tehran is very defiant. People are united. And actually, I told an anecdotal example to the judge on his program, that 3 of my own students, well, there's students of my faculty. A couple of them I never had class with before. But they were apparently, from what they were saying, involved in these riots that we had in January. Not like knives and, not, or weapons and guns. Just some of the young people who are with these, who are foolish enough to believe the propaganda coming from the Western Persian language media outlets funded by Western intelligence agencies. And these three people contacted me, and two of them were very emotional. And they were asking me, how can we help? How can we make up for what we did? It was quite moving, actually, speaking to a couple of them. And it just shows that, what the Trump and Netanyahu and these barbaric regimes have done is they've taught the younger generation in Iran what we could not teach them, because they did not witness the revolution. They did not experience the Shah, the Savak, his secret police, the brutality, the slaughter on the streets of Tehran during the revolution. They didn't experience the US-backed war of Saddam Hussein. They didn't experience chemical weapons. They didn't see these things. So now they're experiencing firsthand what the United States really is, what the regime in Washington, what the empire, what this evil empire, what this Epstein regime really is. And so it's united people in a way in which not even the 12-day war did. This is just something different. And as I told you, the scenes on Tehran that are on the streets of Tehran, you've seen some of the footage of the vicious airstrikes. These people are sick barbarians, these Americans and these Zionists, just destroying neighborhoods. But you see the people on the streets, and when they see the surface-to-air defenses, they don't move. They say, we're ready for martyrdom. They chant against the United States. Now, I find it, I think if anyone wonders why people chant death to America in these ceremonies in Iran, do they still wonder why? So the Islamic Republic of Iran today is stronger than what it was, much stronger than what it was a week ago. And Ayatollah Khamenei, who was always popular, and Pepe has been to Iran, Ayatollah Khamenei is a popular figure. Administrations, some of them become popular, then they become unpopular, then they may become popular again, but he's always been popular. Yes, he has his opponents. Some people despise him, some people are indifferent to him, but he's popular. But when he was martyred, his image became even greater in the eyes of all different sectors of society. He refused to leave his house and office because he said that a lot of people are struggling and they have nowhere to go. And since they have nowhere to go, I'm not going anywhere. Mm. He was super clean. None of his children have businesses, even a small shop. Not because he's against business, but he says that since you're linked to me, you should not be in business. So they all are educated. They either teach at university. His son-in-law, who was martyred, taught at THAAD Mudaris University, which is near the University of Tehran, near where I teach. His children are all highly educated. They either teach at seminaries or universities. And so he was a person who was imprisoned multiple times during the Shah's reign, tortured. And then after the revolution, he was the youngest of the leadership. And when the war started, he immediately went to the war fronts, even though he had never held a gun before, even though he'd never been trained before. He learned how to fight in the war fronts. Later, he became president. He survived an assassination attack. That's why his right arm is disabled. He became president. And then during the last months of the war, when the United States entered the battle alongside Saddam during the last few months, and the US began to bomb they shot down an Iranian airliner, killing 290 people. They destroyed a number of Iranian naval ships. They destroyed Iranian oil facilities and murdered a lot of Iranians. So the war front with Saddam Hussein had become unstable. He went to the war front as president, and I saw him there, and he was a target, obviously, but he had no fear. This is an intellectual who spoke 4 languages, who is fluent in 4 languages. Persian, he is like a literature scholar. His knowledge of Persian literature is enormous. When he speaks Persian, it's perfect. He speaks eloquently. His Arabic and his knowledge of Arabic culture and literature, enormous. His father is Azeri. He's very fluent in Azeri. Khamenei is a Iranian Azeri city. He is very fluent. He was a close friend of the most famous Azeri poet of the last few centuries, Shahryar. And he knew English. And he read novels in English, including, I think his favorite novel that he read in English was Les Miserables, Hugo, which also I think reflects his personality to a degree, because he was always a person who, just like when he refused to leave his house and said, I'm staying put, because even though everyone knew he would be the first target. So he's always stressing on different administrations, whether leftist or to the right, whether liberal or whatever. We've had different administrations with very different worldviews during these years, but he would always stress that we have to take care of the marginalized, the underclass, the oppressed, those who've been left behind. And that's one major reason why he was so insistent that we have to support the Palestinians, the Southern Africans during the resistance against apartheid. He traveled to Southern Africa as president. Nelson Mandela, very soon after he was released, traveled to Tehran to meet him and called him his leader. And he supported Nicaragua, Cuba, and Venezuela because he saw them as the oppressed. And he was a unique person. I've never known a person like him in my life. No one near him. He was an amazing person. But with regards to the military, he's organized the state in a way that, despite his demise, the armed forces is working 24 hours a day. Iran is firing missiles and drones at the American assets in the Persian Gulf and at the Israeli regime day and night. And since the Americans are unable to destroy any of these underground bases, which itself was an act of genius, this whole notion of setting up a defense system, creating your own drone industry and your own drone technology at a time when the world was still into airplanes and that sort of thing. Remember, the Russians needed Iran's help. So this was his policy. And then missiles, and then having them underground, deep underground. And so since the American regime and the Israeli regime can't destroy any of these underground bases, they take it out on people. They bomb schools. They bomb hospitals. They bomb local police stations. They bomb cultural centers. They carry out double tap attacks across the city of Tehran and in other cities. A friend of mine was in Ferdowsi Square, a place I think Pepe has visited. Ferdowsi Square is in central Tehran. They bombed Ferdowsi Square. A friend of mine was witness. He didn't hear of it. And then when people rushed to help and first responders were trying to find people under the rubble, they struck again. And they've done this in different areas in Tehran. A journalist who I think works for Drop Site News told me himself that he went to one of these squares public square, and saw the devastation there, and the people were saying they did the same thing there too. So the Americans and the Israelis are trying to take revenge on people because they can't access these underground bases. So this, their viciousness aside, their medieval character aside, the brilliance of this military structure, I think, is extraordinary. And the fact that despite all the difficulties and maximum pressure sanctions, right now in Iran, you don't see people in these long queues and lines for bread or whatever. Yeah. They've gathered stocks for this day.
Wow.
So for the next few months, there won't be any real crisis unless the Americans start targeting other things, which is not impossible. But I'm sure they have answers for that too. So the point is that Iran is stronger today. True, they're murdering people, they're destroying public facilities, they're murdering children, they're murdering men and women, and the Western media, completely indifferent. They're like cheerleaders for war. And it shows that there's no real difference between any of the Western media outlets, although we all know this from Gaza and from Lebanon and from Yemen. There's no difference between CNN and Fox News or The Guardian and The New York Times and Breitbart. They're all the same. One is more bombastic, one may be a bit more sophisticated or nuanced, or not nuanced, but more subtle, but they're all the same. So they start the war. We were negotiating like last time, and they start the war. That too, in Iran, was an element which strengthened national unity. Because even those who were naive and thought that maybe we could do a deal with the Americans saw once again, like 8-9 months ago, that the Americans are liars, that the Americans are deceitful, that they have the worst qualities possible, these elites. And so this strengthens each of these elements, the fact that Western media is indifferent, the fact that Iran was negotiating and the other side tried to deceive Iran. Of course, this time around, no one was deceived. We all were expecting an attack. In fact, the night before the attack, me and a number of friends, we were talking together, and we were all saying the chances that it'll be tonight are very high. So, but all of these, the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei, the fact that they began with the slaughter of children, just like when they shot down the airliner, which in my opinion was intentional. And the bombing of this school was definitely intentional, without a doubt, without a doubt. You could find this school on Google Map. How could they not know where they're bombing? So in any case, national unity today is much stronger. It was always strong, but it was stronger. Some of those people, at least from my own anecdotal experience and from things that a couple of my colleagues have said, some of those young people who got caught up in this, those riots, many of them have shifted. Their views have evolved. They've woken up. We couldn't have, with 100 years of textbooks and philosophy professors and political professors, we couldn't have convinced them to change their views. But Trump and Netanyahu, within 24 hours, they taught these kids what we learned when we were young, what we experienced. When I survived chemical attacks, I'll never forget it. These kids are witnessing the true America. They are witnessing the essence of Western Empire, the essence of Zionism, the essence of the Epstein class. They're feeling it. When you see all these dead kids or families screaming from under the rubble, just like in Gaza and in Lebanon or in Yemen, you comprehend it in a very different way. And so the United States, at least for years to come, has shown to younger Iranians what it really means, the United States.
Yeah.
And hopefully by the time the next generation grows up, the empire will be gone.
Yeah. Well, Pepe, I wanted to get your reaction to Iran's retaliation as you have seen it to this aggression, given all these great points by Professor Marandi.
Benny,
Yeah.
can I do my oldest profession in the world a little bit with Mohammad? I want to be the interviewer for 10 minutes, if that's okay.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Okay, and then you can ask me something, but I think we need to get from Mohammad, because he is in the battlefield, in the theater, a few precisions. Mohammad, I have two sets of questions, 3 or 4, let's say, each. First thing, is Tehran being carpet bombed day and night? Is it out of revenge, spite, impotence, pure perversion, because they know that the only weapon that they may have now is to intimidate the civilian population, considering that they are being hammered all across the spectrum, from Israel to all the military bases across the Gulf? And related to that, are the air defense network in Tehran, as you see it, is it working properly? Is it so-so, or it has been disabled? This is the first set. What's really happening in Tehran on the ground now, please?
No, air defenses are not disabled, but the United States Air Force, which is much larger than that of the Israeli regime, combined with the Israeli regime, is very large, and so a lot of the air defenses have been working very hard to protect the country, but they do get through. Much of the strikes are with missiles. They fire either from the jets from over airspace, or Kuwaiti airspace, or Saudi airspace, or other areas in the Persian Gulf, and Iraqi airspace. Of course, the Iraqi government is opposed to this, but they can't do anything about it. But sometimes from my understanding, they do enter Iranian airspace. They are met with air defense and with Iranian jets. But it's a very complicated battlefield, and the Americans have lots of jets. So Iranian air defenses, I would say their major improvement has been against drones. And also Iranian intelligence has been much better. We don't have the sabotage at all that we had 8-9 months ago, which is a big deal. The drones that the Americans and the Israelis use to find targets, they are being shot down very regularly. And of course, we know that 3 American jets were shot down over Kuwait. The Iranians say they shot it down. The Americans say it was friendly fire, which I think is even worse in a way, because if you're going to shoot down your own jets, that doesn't say much about your technology. But no, it's not as if the air defenses have collapsed. That's not the case. But they are heavily bombing Tehran. Sometimes they do strike particular targets, but often they're just striking neighborhoods. Like, for example, the Gandhi Hospital. They struck this hospital, and it's been evacuated. It's a private hospital, so it has nothing to do with the government. And they struck the IVF clinic. So a lot of women who wanted to have babies will probably not be able to have babies now. And the infant ward was particularly badly damaged. They've struck many hospitals across the country and police stations. So what they're trying to do, but when they bomb, like the police, they bomb the neighborhood. Like the police, it's you've been to Tehran. It's not as if like there are these separate buildings and there's just a part of the city. You strike and the buildings around are damaged or collapse or they miss. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to destroy the social fabric of Iran.
Mm-hmm.
They want to demolish the social fabric to create chaos.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process, they carry out massive airstrikes. And when you see these neighborhoods, it's like hell. But so I would say it's a combination, but it's mostly to intimidate. And I think the real reason behind these airstrikes on civilians and civilian targets and all that is basically out of frustration that they have not been able to weaken Iran's missile capabilities or drone capabilities. And they also underestimated their capabilities. And the reason is because Iran has many underground missile cities that they don't know about. The Iranians are not using most of the cities at all. They're using the same missile cities that they used in the previous war. And
Yes.
the others remain untouched. And Iran's factories to build missiles and drones are all underground. So Iran continues to make new drones and to make new missiles of different types, and the Americans can't do anything about it. So that angers them. Iran has now been able to, as both of you know, weaken the air defenses of both the Israeli regime and in the Persian Gulf. They've been using older missiles for the most part, almost exclusively. These missiles were made 20 years ago. So the Iranians are firing them off and emptying the air defenses both in the Persian Gulf, but mostly in Israel. In the Persian Gulf, they've been using older drones for the most part, and again, destroying air defenses and emptying air defenses. But in the Persian Gulf, they're destroying the air defenses very effectively. So as time goes by, Iran can use less missiles to do more, and they haven't even really touched their newer technology. And they can use less drones to do more, and they haven't really been using their newer technology. And one reason that shows Iran's strength is the fact that the Americans can do nothing about the Strait of Hormuz. So Trump said that he's going to send in the Navy to escort the ships. Let's see him do it. He can't. Those ships will they'll sink. In fact, one reason why the airstrikes in Iran have been less effective across the country is because the Americans and the Americans there, they have to take their jets and their naval ships, keep them far away. And so when the planes come, they have to refuel in the air, then strike, then go back and refuel, and then land wherever it is they land. Apparently, a lot of them go to Cyprus. From what I've heard, a lot of the jets have left Saudi Arabia and Jordan because Iranian missiles have been striking them, and they've gone to Cyprus, and that's where they take off and murder women and children.
Thank you, Mohammad. Now the short second set, which is about Mojtaba Khamenei. He has not been confirmed yet officially as the new supreme leader. In case he is, and the best information that I had in the beginning of the week is that he was the front runner. And today there are some indirect confirmations that he has already been chosen. If that's the case, give us your personal analysis of Mojtaba, which seems to be extremely competent, tough as nails, excellent relationship with the leadership of the IRGC. What can Iran and the Gulf and the Global South expect of him if he's really the new supreme leader? And just complementing what you just told us about the situation on the ground in Tehran and the apparently indiscriminate attack on civilians, which is the new strategy, especially the past 48 hours or so, we can read the initial attack on day one on the elementary girls' school by the Epstein syndicate as a ritualistic murder. It totally ties with their mindset. It was an intimidation right on day one, exactly to throw society into total convulsion, an act horrific beyond belief, which, of course, as we all know, didn't merit a single comma of condemnation by the whole of NATO-Stan, the whole collective West. So maybe they are trying to apply the same methodology, let's put it this way, to the civilian population in Tehran and in some other major cities. Thanks, Mohammad.
You know, on the first day, I think I did a tweet, and I said that these Epstein class murderers and rapists now, who murder and rape girls are now bombing girls, and that's to be expected of these people. And just as I do not believe that the downing of the Iran Air flight was an accident. We had 8 years of war with Saddam Hussein, and we never accidentally, shot down a plane. The only time where we did was the Ukrainian plane, which was tragic. But this was very different. The Americans were not under duress. The Iranian airplane was flying from Bandar Abbas to Dubai, a very short flight, and it was flying in its corridor. And it was very clear as day what was happening. And the Americans wanted the war to end. They were bombing Iranian facilities, and Iran did not have the naval and the capabilities to really fight back effectively because they're busy with Iraq. So I believe that downing of that plane was intentional, especially since the United States never apologized, and the U.S. Vice President at the time, Bush the senior, said, "I'll never apologize for anything that the Americans have done." And but with regards to the leader, so far no announcement has been made, and I can't really comment on individuals because people abroad and some people in Iran, for some reason, the more I say this is not true, the more some people are convinced that it is true. But I don't, I'm not in government, I'm not a part of the state. And so if I comment on any of these issues, it could lead people, push people in the wrong direction. What I can say is that there will be continuity. The Council of Experts, which is an elected body that chooses and removes the leader according to the Constitution, they will vote for someone like Ayatollah Khamenei with the same worldview. And what I would add here is that a lot of things have changed in Iranian politics. A lot of things have changed. A lot of differences that existed until recently no longer exist. Views on the United States, views on the West are much more similar among the political class and those who are involved in politics than they were a few years ago. Even, I don't want to mention websites, but some of the some of the media outlets in Iran that I really dislike and who have been very pro-American in recent days, they have been very critical of the West. So I see a new awakening in Iran, sort of like those anecdotal examples that I gave earlier. I think it's not just the youth and it's not just ordinary people, but it's also the political elites. So whoever becomes leader, I think that person will be pursuing similar policies that we've been experiencing in the past. And that is not good news for the United States, especially since, as I said, those in the let's say in the more, I don't know if I can put it this way anymore, but the more liberal camp in Iran, many of them have shifted their views. When you actually see the slaughter, when you actually see them targeting women and children, when you see them bomb, the first hospital that they struck in Tehran was the Gandhi hospital, ironically.
Yeah.
These people are, the Indian government, which is so much in love with Israel, the Gandhi hospital and a private hospital. And so this has changed the way people see things. Some of these, these so-called Iranians who live abroad, many of them, by the way, are on the payroll. Tens of thousands of Iranians abroad are on the payroll in one way or another. You have 4,000 Iranians just in Albania in a troll farm. And then you have thousands in other troll farms. You have hundreds of Persian language media outlets, television stations. All of these are funded by Western governments. They're not making money from expensive studios or using satellite. That costs money. The Western governments pay for it, and they have staff, and they have people, they have websites, they have Telegram channels, they have Twitter accounts, and then you have all these elites and cooperating with think tanks. They're probably 20,000 so-called Iranians on the payroll. And these people outside of Iran, they portray Iran that you've been here. So I'm not saying this to you. I'm saying this to the audience. These people are portraying an Iran that is only in their imagination. It's a completely different Iran. It doesn't exist on planet Earth. No matter how much they try. You can find people in Iran who think like them, although increasingly smaller in number, but that's not Iran. That's a small segment of Iran. Just as we saw during the anniversary of the revolution, the millions who came to the streets in Tehran, tens of millions across the country, but during the last few nights, it's stunning. Millions of people under threat of death and destruction. They won't budge. So whoever comes to power has a very strong mandate and has the Iranian population behind them. And Iranians want punishment. And they are going to punish the United States. And what they're doing in the Persian Gulf, whatever harm they do to Iranian women and children, what Iran can do to them in the Persian Gulf is enormous. Right now, the Iranians are only beginning to show what they can do. They've shut the Strait of Hormuz, but they're not destroying the ships. They've badly damaged 10 or 15, I think roughly 15 tankers who were disobeying and tried to cross the Strait of Hormuz, and they badly struck them, and some of them have sunk. But most of the ships are staying put, and the Iranians are waiting. Some of these installations in the Persian Gulf are being destroyed, those that are linked to U.S. interests. However, that's defined. Hotels which host U.S. forces, they're targets. U.S. bases that are linked to ports, those ports that may be civil. Right now, a lot of U.S. forces are in civilian ports. Those civilian ports are targets. None of these Arab dictatorships are in a position to complain. These family dictatorships have allowed the Americans to set a base and conspire against Iran and launch a war. They're all complicit. They can't have their cake and eat it too. They are murdering Iranian women and children. So Qatar, which is an American proxy, has no right to complain about Iran. The Qatari foreign minister, or apparently I heard from someone that he said, we will not stay indifferent. If Qatar tries anything against Iran, that will be the end of Qatar. It'll be finished in a day. If Iran wants, they can destroy all these oil and gas facilities, and it will take years to rebuild them. And if Iran wants everyone, all the Americans to leave, all they have to do is destroy the desalination plants, and it'll be over. And they can destroy the tankers. If that happens, there will be no oil to take out of the Strait of Hormuz. And there'll be no tankers to take that non-existent oil or gas out of the Strait of Hormuz. So right now, the Iranians are telling the Americans, this is up to you. We did not want this war. We want to live and allow people to thrive. We want this genocide in Gaza to come to an end, this Holocaust, but we don't want to create a third world war, and we don't want to bring down the global economy. But there's not a thing in the world that the Americans can do to stop Iran if Iran wants to do that. Trump just said that he'll open up the Strait of Hormuz. Let's see him do it. Let's see him do it. Can't. So this is where things are. And I think that as things stand, we are heading towards, we're heading towards a much more dangerous situation. But again, both of you know, we've discussed this before in person, online. These are things that we've been saying for years. I mean, when Trump says he was surprised that Iran struck at the Persian Gulf, well, he's an idiot. And his advisors are idiots. It was obvious it was going to happen. I've said it on Danny's show, I'm sure, multiple times. Right now, they're bombing Tehran. I don't know if you can hear it.
No, I can't.
The air defenses are working, so obviously the bombs are going to explode any moment. So, can you hear? Anyway, so it's clear as day. I mean, if they'd been watching Danny's show, they would have known that the Iranians are not going to sit back and allow the Americans to destroy Iran's civil society and from bases in the Persian Gulf, and let the Qatari dictatorship or the Emirati dictatorship just sit there and have their cake and watch it on CNN. It's not going to happen. That's not how it's going to happen. And I've been warning. Some of these Qataris have complained to the Iranian government about me last year. When the Wall Street Journal said that when Trump comes back to power, he's thinking about bombing Iran. And I wrote a tweet saying that, well, if he does, that'll be bad because CENTCOM is in Qatar, near Doha, and it'll be destroyed. And then the Qataris were very upset, and I'm not even in government. So some people, I mean, the foreign ministry called me and said, can you delete the tweet? The only time in my life that I've ever deleted a tweet for the substance, I mean, I may have missed my grammar or something was wrong back then in the day when you couldn't edit. I may have deleted many tweets or multiple tweets, but the only time in my life that I deleted a tweet was when the foreign ministry asked me to do so, because the spokesman for the foreign ministry is a friend. And I did it because he's a friend, and that's it basically. But I was telling facts. It's obvious what would happen. And then when the Americans bombed Iran last time around, Iran struck Doha, exactly as I said. And this time around, when the Americans are waging war against the Iranian people with all those bases in the Persian Gulf, what do they expect from Iran? And why should the Saudis or the Emiratis or the Jordanians complain. And the most disgusting thing of all, and this does not reflect on people in this region, but to see Turkey, the regime, allow US bases in Turkey to be used against us, allow AWACS jets to fly over Turkish airspace to gather data for the United States to bomb us, while they are transporting the Aliyev regime's in Azerbaijan, the Aliyev regime's oil to Netanyahu, discounted oil, is despicable. And it just shows the AK party is fake. They should go and start thinking about football and the economy and television and movies and stop talking about Palestine, because it's all fake. It was all just to build up their own image. When they allowed Hamas to go there, it was because the Americans asked them to do it, and the Israelis, just like Doha. And the same is true with Doha. These are all, the Doha is a proxy, the Emirates, but all of these countries are helping the United States. Some more and some less. In the Persian Gulf, they're all in. Jordan, it's all in. They're all in. Turkey, more subtle, but they're helping. And they're cooperating with it. So it's basically Iran against the whole West, these proxy regimes. And what does Iran sin? Two things. Iran wants to be independent. And two, Iran can't accept genocide and ethnic cleansing in Palestine. That's why we're so horrible. That's why we're the evil regime. That's why for 47 years, they've been demonizing us. And one final note, poor Danny, it's his show and he's not even talking. But,
I love it. Keep going, keep going.
One final note, I've been doing this program on Al-Mayadeen every week, and for a few weeks. It's not my thing, but sort of I was pushed into it. And I'm not good at these things. But last week, I'm not doing it now from this week because of the situation, things have changed. But until the war ends, I guess. But last Friday, I did a program. It's a monologue, and it was about the forever collapsing Islamic Republic. That how in the West, the Islamic Republic of Iran is always collapsing. And I did some research, well, thanks to DeepSeek mostly, but I did some research and, well, I didn't really do any research. DeepSeek really gave me a lot of information. I just put it together. And the headlines in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Los Angeles Times, and so on, if you remove those headlines and the key phrases and sentences in the articles and put them in today's New York Times and Washington Post and so on, you wouldn't know the difference. And anyone can go after the show and take a look at my program. They can look at my program. I quote them. The revolution is failing. The youth, like in the 1990s, in the late 1990s, I think, the youth who don't have memories of the revolution, don't want it anymore. The 1990s. A second revolution is brewing. This was back then, and nothing has changed. So every time they'll say people are protesting, of course, it's an evil regime, it's unpopular. They gun down peaceful protesters on the streets and all that nonsense and all those lies. And many in the West believe it because they're brought up with this fake narrative. But when they act against Iran, their head hits a brick wall. Why? Because the reality is one thing, and their fake narratives are something else. It's an alternative Iran. It's a fake Iran. It's their imaginary Iran that these Iranians on the exile who are on their payroll, and some of the Iranians who are not, but they left Iran with the Shah, or they left with the MEK, or I know Iranians, I know quite a few Iranians in the West. If you speak in favor of Iran, it's not going to do you any good in getting a job and getting employed. If someone like me went to the United States, they wouldn't allow me to teach in a kindergarten class because of my political views. So obviously people are conditioned to think in a certain way as well. But in any case, those segments of the diaspora, if we can call them the diaspora, that advocate war, death, and destruction, they have nothing to do with the reality in Iran and public opinion in Iran. But nothing is going to change in Western media because it's Epstein class controlled. Just like Trump is Epstein class controlled, the media is Epstein class controlled. So that is the narrative, and anyone who thinks otherwise is fool. Just like, I mean, Gaza, I think, was evidence enough. And then in addition to the Western media, it's this Arabic media and regional media. They're the same because these oil and gas rich despots, which are proxies of the West, their media, whether it's Qatar, they have an empire, each and every one of them. It's not just Al Jazeera or Al Arabiya or Sky News Arabia. They have all sorts of funding for websites and TV channels and these Wahhabi and Salafi clerics and their centers and so on. They've been doing the same thing, demonizing Iran, telling everyone how evil the Iranians are, how evil the Shia are. They've been always telling the Palestinians how evil the Shia are. And then the Persian media empire that the West created, whenever they say these things, they translate it into Persian and then broadcast it. So Iranians would see, wow, they hate us. They hate the Shia. They want us dead. And then if a Palestinian says something about Iran, which some have, then they would focus on that. So that Iranians would say, well, why are we helping the Palestinians when they want us dead? Because some of these people are takfiri, Salafi, Wahhabi, takfiri. So I know some of these people. They have TV. I know people of TV stations in London. They're takfiri. But Ayatollah Khamenei, he didn't care. He wouldn't allow this sort of thing to change the view of him or his supporters about the Palestinian people. He would say they're oppressed, they are being ethnically cleansed, and we have to support them. And that says a lot, by the way, about the Iranians in general, those who support the Palestinian cause, because they're being told day and night that the Palestinians hate you, that the Arabs hate you, and so on and so forth. But yet, and a lot of this is not true. A lot of this is exaggeration, and that's the objective. It's to divide and rule, and it's not as if, right now, you've seen that after the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei, how much support he has across the region, and what people are saying about him, scholars, Sunni, Shia, Christians, Jews. But the point is that these regimes and those on the payroll, like the Western media, they have been trying their best to create division. But despite that, Iran, the Islamic Republic of Iran, has been steadfast in its support for the Palestinian people. And I think that's a very big thing. If you're still there, Danny, you can join the conversation.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. It's an incredible analysis, Professor Marandi and Pepe. Incredible questions. Thanks so much for bringing those in. My only question, if Pepe wants to join,
maybe we should just take over the show and call it the Mohammad Pepe show, or the Pepe Mohammad show, and just remove you from the YouTube channel.
And it would work because your names are all in the title, so it would be totally everyone. It would be convincing. No, but Pepe,
no, of course.
Well, but Pepe, if you wanted to chime in here, your reaction to, I named just some of the developments in the beginning of the show with Iran hitting the CIA station in Riyadh. They've hit this absolutely critical radar in Qatar. Qatar is shutting down their gas trade now. There's been so many developments rolling in on Iran's retaliation, and I wanted to ask you, what have you made of it? And maybe you can help the audience understand just how big in scope it is, because now we also have Hezbollah back in. I don't think we've mentioned that. Maybe, Professor Marty, you did earlier in the program, but there's so many elements to this. But I wanted, Pepe, if you could help the audience understand it.
Yes, I was putting together a very long column before our conversation. So it's going to be in the middle of the night here in Southeast Asia, trying to put all these interlocking elements together to give an overall view of how this decentralized mosaic strategy, which is the official Iranian denomination to what they're doing, how it is evolving and how immensely sophisticated it is. From the beginning, and starting with the fact that the counterpunch to the decapitation strike started half an hour after the decapitation strike, and it was relentless, and it was multi-vector, simultaneous, all over the spectrum, Israel and Israeli and US interests across the Gulf. And that continues. Maybe in the past, less than 24 hours, the Iranians are launching less missiles. It doesn't matter. And as Mohammad was saying super correctly, these are the old ones. So they still have a lot of old missiles to launch because they haven't even started with the new ones and with the ones that we don't even know that they have. This is going to be for the next stage when we're going to have the interceptor crisis, especially after 4 or 5 days time from now, like in the beginning of next week. Then we're going to be in interceptor crisis hell for Israel and for the US. So the timing of the escalation, the way it has been planned, this was obviously months in planning. Of course, it's obviously started before the 12-day war, but they learned from their mistakes during the 12-day war. They are not repeating their mistakes after the 12-day war. And of course, now they have that extra, I would say, pigment in the whole picture, which is direct intel, satellite, and first-class information in real time from Russia and from China. This doesn't have to be advertised by any one of this strategic triad. It's there and it's working. And obviously, everybody knows, considering all, like Mohammad has been to Moscow many times. We even met in Moscow several times. And we know how the interaction at the highest level of the Russian Ministry of Defense and the Iranian Ministry of Defense, how it works and how they help each other. And for instance, there are some elements of even poetic justice. They discovered in some of the drones used in the current battlefield, which theoretically are Shaheeds, but they were sort of upgrades of the Shaheeds that Russians bought and then manufactured in Russia as geraniums and using the jamming devices in the geraniums, but now in the Shaheeds in Iran. This is absolutely fascinating. It's a back and forth of technology, which implies that the strategic relationship in terms of exchanging state-of-the-art technology is up there. And stuff that people discover only later after the fact. In fact, the Comet jamming device in the Iranian Shaheed drones. So now I see we are progressing through across two parallel tracks, and it's very, very dangerous because they won't intersect. They were two parallel tracks, and they are running towards the finishing line, which is not going to be a finishing line. It's going to be a finishing line for the next few weeks. Can Iran resist for the next few days until the interceptor hell is definitive on the Israeli side and on the American side? And then they can go to the next stage, which is totally obliterate all these bases, CIA cells, and American installations all across the Gulf, those that are not obliterated yet, and of course, go against Israel no holds barred with their latest generation hypersonic missiles. This is one thing. And the other parallel track is, if the Americans see that they are entering interceptor hell, and this is going to be the next stage of the war, they can do what they are already doing, as Mohammad explained to us only a few minutes ago, which is bombing civilian targets in Tehran and in other major cities of Tehran, and then go for the Gaza syndrome, level a great deal of Iran out of impotence, revenge, total perversion, and because they think they can get away with it, which is even worse. So that's very, very dangerous. And this is where we are in the next crucial, I would say, 5 days, 1 week from now. Is this going to change everything that is behind this centralized mosaic strategy and the Iranian strategy, which is essentially death by 1,000 cuts against the US and against Israel at the same time? No, it's not going to change. So if we follow the logical conclusion of these two parallel tracks advancing like crazy on both sides and never meeting, it is really an existential war. It's a do or die war, especially for Iran. And of course, Iran now is representing the whole global South. That's my personal thesis. This is a war not only against Iran, but against the three top BRICS, Iran, Russia, and China, against BRICS as a whole, and against BRICS partners, and against the global South as a whole. This means against 88, 89% of the global population. So that's why this is the war that is going to define geopolitically the rest of the century. And this is not hyperbolic at all. These are the facts now. And Iran is in the front line. And what I found particularly touching, and it's not a stretch at all, is that we owe this to three Shiite martyrs, in fact. We owe this to General Soleimani, we owe this to Syed Nasrallah, and we owe this to Ayatollah Khamenei. This is the triad that was martyred and that was killed by the Empire of Chaos and that death cult in West Asia. And now, Shiite Islam, with the leader of 300 million plus Shiites all over the world, killed by this genocidal empire, and of course their aircraft carrier in West Asia, they are defending the whole of the global South, in fact, which is something that a lot of beyond stupidified and brainwashed so-called leftists all across the West, from France and Germany to Brazil, for that matter, they still don't get it. They can't, because they have been completely brainwashed. So that's why we are in the middle of the defining moment of the 21st century geopolitically. It's as clear as it cannot be more clear than that. And we all hope Iran is not going to be destroyed, which is something that they would not even think twice, the Empire of Chaos and the death cult in West Asia, to do. If Iran is destroyed, the rest of the century in terms of real freedom for the global South as a whole is destroyed. At the moment, these people have already managed to blow BRICS from the inside, blow the SCO from the inside. The SCO launched an absolutely ridiculous communique a day or two ago. They are two crippled crypto walking dead organizations at the moment. The great deal of the global South is too apoplectic to organize any sort of reaction. The United States, well, it was 6 feet under, now it's 12 feet feet under.
Yeah.
And is not going to resurrect anytime soon. There's not going to be a return of the living UN dead. So it's terrible. The only thing we see, I would say, the only glimpse of possible light at the end of this very dark tunnel is that series of phone calls of Vladimir Putin early this week with everybody that matters in the Persian Gulf. In fact, they called him. They asked him, do something. Can you be the mediator? So in Moscow, I was in Moscow last week before the war, unfortunately. I left Moscow, 3 days before the war. And I went through, of all places, I went through Oman. I was in Oman 2 days before the war. Of course, there was all sorts of rumors all around the world, but we will never expect that. Mohammad was saying that on Friday in Tehran, they were expecting that it could happen between Friday and Saturday. In Oman, on Thursday, people were saying, no, we're going to have the next meeting, the indirect meeting on Monday. So, and they are still discussing. There's a possibility of a deal and all that. Poor Omanis. Very gracious, of course, but poor Omanis, of course. So at least a lot of stuff is now absolutely clear. Death of international law, death of the UN, death of any possibility of mediation or negotiation or diplomacy with the empire of chaos, plunder, and permanent strikes, or if we don't like you, we kill you. That's what it is now. The mafiazation, the total mafiazation of the American presidency, led by a megalomaniacal mafioso, taught by an advisor of McCarthyist, Senator Joseph McCarthy. That tells you everything about Trump. Who taught Trump to be the thing that he is now? He learned it from a McCarthyite. That's it. That's a very simple answer. So he has to act like a boss or an aspirant to Tony Soprano the way he is now. That's what he really is. We should not be astonished by all that. What we should be astonished at is that the sovereignty of the United States is also 6 feet under after the start of this war. This is a war by a mafioso presidency, basically following orders of a genocidal war criminal. And when we have historians in the 21st century, independent historians from the global south, who will be writing the history of the 21st century, this is what is going to be written, And this was the final moral, not to mention geopolitical, geoeconomic, etc., collapse of so-called Western civilization, which, by the way, at the Munich Security Conference, via the little pathetic Cusano Marco Rubio, was described as, yes, we are the heirs of Western civilization, the heirs of you Europeans, and now we're going to recolonize the global south, and you Europeans, you have to be with us, and we're going to recover all the previous historical bling that you have, thanks to us Americans. So at least now everything is clear. The enormous tragedy of all that is that this is clear via another completely absurd, murderous, incredibly pervert war that started with the decapitation strike of a leader of a sovereign nation and the killing of 160 or 70 girls in an elementary school in a ritualistic murder by a bunch of perverts who adore their piece of shit God with that piece of shit book that nobody can stand. At least it's clear to all of us, And what we're living these days, at least, is, okay, let's see if Iran, with their decentralized mosaic strategy, if they are capable to put up enough resistance to turn the game around and to teach a lesson to this bunch of perverts.
Yeah, powerful stuff. Are you guys good for another 10 minutes? Do you have that, Pepe, and Mohammed, Professor Marandi?
Yeah, I have to.
Yeah, I wanna hear. I'm here to hear Mohammed.
All right.
Absolutely.
I have to leave in 10 minutes
All right.
because I have to go on. I regret to say I have to go on Pierce Morgan's show. And by the way, if I don't know again if you can hear the
I heard that
bombs
one.
exploding. Yeah. So
Yes.
anyway, but yeah, I can be on for a few more minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess my final question.
Are you gonna talk with that piece of shit twat again, Mohammed?
Anyway, I didn't want to, but anyway.
Hey, I understand. I understand.
I give you your patience and your wisdom.
You're very kind.
Well, I guess my final question to both of you: the United States, of course, is not talking like this. They're talking about, Trump administration says it's wiped out everything. We've even seen Israel and the U.S. post videos, essentially, of bombings of what look like decoys, painted helicopters and jets on the ground, and showing that as some kind of major feat. But of course, Iran is getting hit, and now they're talking about, Professor Marandi, a Kurdish insurgency, an uprising that they want to bring into the country to help with the overall goal, it seems, of regime change. What do you make of this and the overall hubris of the United States right now?
Well, just first a reminder, if we go back a few months to the 7-week war against Yemen, every day they were telling us how they're wiping out the Ansarullah forces or the Houthis, as they like to call them, and that they're devastating them. And I think Pepe knows a thing or two about that. He was there. So we were hearing how it's finished. And then suddenly, after 7 weeks, Trump came on television and said, they capitulated. We won. It's over. And he walked away. And it turns out that it was the exact opposite. Yemen won. Despite the fact, of course, that the Trump regime slaughtered many innocent people. We recall those messages on, I think, Signal, where they said this guy, their missile leader, went into a building to see his girlfriend. I mean, obviously, they're clueless about what they're talking about. There was no missile leader killed. There was no girlfriend. They just brought down an entire apartment block, slaughtering everyone based on fake intelligence. But they lost the war. So I wouldn't take anything that they say seriously. The Trump regime is always winning. And they're winning on all fronts about everything in the world. So when they talk about winning against Iran, put it alongside all their other winnings, and it has about the same amount of credibility. They won in the trade war. They won in Yemen. They're always winning. So okay, they can continue saying that. But the reality on the ground is that no oil is leaving the Persian Gulf until the Iranians say so. And Trump said he's going to open the Persian Gulf. He's going to open the Strait of Hormuz. Let's see him do it. That is where Iran has Trump by the throat. The entire Persian Gulf, anyone who knows a thing or two about the Persian Gulf knows that it's the most sensitive place on this planet. It's not very wide, and it's full of oil and gas facilities. If you land at any airport in the Persian Gulf, you fly over oil and gas installations and tankers. I don't know if you saw that clip 2-3 days ago when the Iranians hit a tanker with a missile, and the missile was flying by all these other tankers. They didn't, because those tankers were obeying orders. The other one was listening to the Americans. They went and struck that tanker. So the Iranians, they can pull the plug, and there's nothing that the Americans can do about it. If the Iranians hit the desalination plants, they have to leave immediately. Everyone has to go to Jordan or wherever. If they destroy the oil and gas installations, already nothing is coming out of the Persian Gulf. But if they destroy the installations, then it's over. And they can do the same with Azerbaijan. So Trump should be very careful. I mean, he can boast all he wants, but the Iranians are steadfast. And Iranian culture, Iranian religious ideology, and the martyrdom of Ayatollah Khamenei has made them extremely steadfast. We are being bombed as we speak, but we're not afraid. We're not intimidated. And we're not going to relinquish the Palestinian people, nor are we going to relinquish the Cubans. And here, just before I leave, I want to remind everyone that as this war is going on, they're starving the Cuban people. And they've taken the people of Venezuela hostage. So these are dark days, as Pepe has said, very dark days, but they will not defeat the Islamic Republic of Iran. And as General Soleimani said, as since Pepe alluded to him, we are the nation of Imam Hussein. So there's no such thing as surrender for us. Anyway, I hope, later on I'll come back and listen to Pepe because I have to leave now and sign in for their program, which is recorded. But I'll listen to Pepe later on and to what you have to say. But I hope your audience remains active and prays for the Iranian people and for the resistance and for the Palestinians and for the Lebanese who are also being battered. They're slaughtering the Lebanese because Hezbollah is battling the Israeli regime. If people can boycott US goods or Western goods, if people can raise awareness about what's going on in Cuba, in our region, in Palestine, in Gaza, and Lebanon, I am absolutely certain that there will be light at the end of the tunnel. Whether people like me are around to see it is completely irrelevant. So bye for now.
Goodbye, Professor Marandi. Great to be with you. We'll be in touch, definitely. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mohammad. Bless you.
Thank you, Pepe.
All right. Yeah, Pepe, we don't have to stick around too much longer. I just want maybe your closing comments on anything we haven't mentioned with regard to this.
I need to go as well. So
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes, no problem. No problem. Any final comments, Pepe, that you want to impart?
No, I think what I wanted to say, I said it a few minutes ago. This is the lesson for all of us in the Global South and all of you in the Global North who have critical thinking and who think and act like real human beings. So I assume the majority of the planet. Let's be auspicious, Our future is being decided now.
Yeah, it is.
And the geopolitical future of the whole planet. It could not be more serious than what's going on now.
Yeah, I just want to thank everyone. Thanks so much, Pepe. We'll head out together. I want to thank everyone for watching, all those who gave super chats that I'm pulling up on the screen right now. I want to also make sure you know that Pepe's work, you can find it on X and on Telegram. The links are in the video description. Also there, all the places to support this channel as well. Without further ado, everyone hit the like button. That will keep the show going, so to speak. And I'll be back tomorrow with friends, actually, of Pepe's and I's. We will have Larry Johnson and Colonel Lawrence Wilkerson on to continue the daily updates. Pepe, great to be with you. We'll head out together and take care, everyone.
Thank you so much, Danny. And thanks to all of you, our audience. Thank you. And, don't forget, the struggle continues.
It does. All right, everybody. See you tomorrow, 12 noon Eastern time. Bye-bye.